Welcome to another edition of the Rundown. Gonna talk some NFL, a little bit NBA, and Brian Kelly. But first, let's break down the game between the Commanders and the Chiefs. The Chiefs won 28-7, and considering the way this game went in the first half, you wouldn't think they would win by that much. But it was just a sloppy game in the first half. And on the first drive, the Commanders are actually moving the ball down the field pretty well. But then there's a Debo Samuel interception. It wasn't on Mariota whatsoever. It just goes off of Debo's face mask, and he just takes his eyes off the ball, and it gets picked off. That was really, really unfortunate because that cost him like probably 3 points, I would presume. Funnily enough, the Chiefs got an interception that following drive off a back shoulder fade to Xavier Worthy, and that wasn't a good throw by Patrick Mahomes whatsoever. Peyton Manning said that it wasn't a good throw either. And when Peyton Manning says it's not a good throw, you know it's not a good throw. He said that when the corner is like looking at the ball, that's just not a smart throw to make. So that got picked off, unfortunately. I was impressed by how aggressive the Commanders were, but I'm not sure that it was a good idea. But I understand why they were aggressive because they knew that the Chiefs were going to get into the end zone, and they knew that basically they have to get touchdowns to win this game. Usually they are an aggressive team generally, but I don't know. Maybe with Marcus Mariota, you shouldn't be as aggressive, but I get why they did it. And plus, I would be remiss not to mention that their kicker Matt Gay was also injured, and they had a backup kicker that they got off the practice squad. So who knows how much trust they actually had in him. Second quarter, they went for it on 4th and 6 at Casey's 40. Don't mind it. It's a 58-yard field goal. Um, who knows if you're going to make that kick or not, especially with the backup. And it's at that weird spot in the field where it actually just makes sense to go for it. Zach Ertz catches it for 5 yards, but unfortunately, it's just a little bit short. If he got like a little bit more, he would have gotten it, but he didn't. Second quarter, 10 minutes and 30 seconds left. They get the ball after another Mahomes interception. This wasn't his fault at all. I mean, it just went off of Travis Kelce's hands. Uh, they go for it on 4th and 1 at Casey's 28-yard line. Uh, Marcus Mariota, he just threw it deep to Terry McLaurin. I have no idea why he did something like that, and the ball wasn't even close to getting completed. And I don't know. I feel when it's 4th and 1, you should just be focused on getting the fourth down instead of just trying to go for it. Maybe 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, you can try and make a big play. But I feel on 4th and 1, when the stakes are just too high, I feel you should just be trying to get to the line to gain. And I believe that he also had Zach Ertz just wide open. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but just based on from what I saw, Zach Ertz looked pretty open, and he could have thrown that ball. Maybe someone can tell me that I'm wrong, but he looked pretty open. So I don't know why he threw it to McLaurin. Maybe he was just trying to get him going or something. But nonetheless, at the half, it's 7-7, and once the second half came about, the Chiefs just took off, and the Commanders just couldn't get anything going offensively. And I knew for the Chiefs that it would only be a matter of time before they started to figure things out offensively. Sometimes first halves can be weird. It was weird for the Chiefs, but they figured it out in the second half, and they got their guys going. I said for the Commanders that it would be bad if they just rolled over this game, considering how high the stakes are and how this game probably has playoff implications in terms of them making it or not. But I'd say, considering the first half, they tried really, really hard. They got two turnovers. Um, and considering the injuries they have, I guess it makes sense that the Chiefs were bound to figure things out offensively, and it would be a blowout to a certain degree. So I'm not really all that mad at the Commanders' effort this game. It's just hard to beat the Goliath that is the Kansas City Chiefs without Jaden Daniels, and with Marcus Mariota starting, it's just too much. Sadly, I think that the Commanders' playoffs hopes are just doomed, especially when they're going to lose to Seattle this Sunday. I'll talk more about that on Friday, but yeah, they're like 3-5 now. They're probably going to be 3-6. Philly is starting to figure things out. They're going to win games one way or the other, and the Cowboys aren't exactly in easy out either, even though their defense isn't exactly exceptional. But yeah, the Commanders, they just have to take the L this year and get ready for next year and hope that Jaden Daniels can be healthy. And I guess that's one thing I am concerned about Jaden Daniels is a slight frame. I mean, I love him as a quarterback, and I thought he was exceptional last year, but I don't know. Maybe there is something to his slight build and he's going to be injury prone. Hopefully he can just build some more mass or whatever it takes so that he is able to stay on the field because the best ability is availability. So I hope that he has a long sustaining career. But anyways, I want to talk about Texans and Niners. The Texans won 26-15, and honestly, this was a shock to me because considering how anemic Houston's offense has looked so far and how CJ Stroud has kind of struggled, even though Houston has a good defense, I thought the Niners would be able to figure it out, but they couldn't. And I thought, especially with Kittle being back and him having his legs underneath him, they would be able to get offense going even with that amazing Houston defense. But with San Francisco's defense being banged up, they just weren't able to compete with Houston. And CJ Stroud finally looked like rookie CJ Stroud. He was phenomenal, 30 of 39, 318 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he did all of that without Nico Collins. I guess I have to give San Francisco's defense credit in one regard, and that they did not give up as many touchdowns. They only gave up like 2 touchdowns, and I don't know, considering how many times the Texans offense got the ball, they should have at least put up 30 points, but they couldn't. San Francisco, they had their opportunities to do their thing, but they just couldn't get anything going. Run game was pretty bad. Christian McCaffrey, only 8 carries for 25 yards, and that's just not going to cut the mustard. San Francisco, they love running the ball, and especially for a guy like Mac Jones, or honestly any quarterback, it's just hard to win a game when your running back only rushes for 25 yards. And that puts a lot more load on your shoulders. And Mac Jones has done an impressive job throwing the ball, but it's just hard to do that against that defense. Glad to see CJ Stroud ball out on the other end, though. This has kind of been a season from hell for him. I'm not going to say that he's totally blameless, but it's just hard to succeed considering the circumstances he's in. Especially with the banged up offensive line and just not having a lot of threats on the perimeter. But he is a franchise guy, and when he goes to the negotiating table, he's going to ask for a max contract, and he's probably going to ask for more than $60 million. And if you want to be a $60 million guy, you kind of have to make the best of what's given to you, and you kind of have to make a chicken salad out of chicken shit, to be honest. So he has to be better, but he just does not have a lot of weapons at his disposal. Big picture for the Niners, this is just not an ideal loss for them whatsoever. I mean, considering the circumstances, it's not horrible where they're at. They're 5-3 considering they're on a backup quarterback who is pretty good, and they've just had injuries to their like main guys, whether it's Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle was out for many weeks. Shanahan said that it's not a long shot for Brock Purdy to play in Week 9. That doesn't exactly instill a lot of confidence in me. I'm going to presume that he's probably not going to play in Week 9. And I highly doubt that Ricky Pearsall is going to play either. They face the Giants next week, which exactly isn't going to be easy. I know the Giants lost 38-20 against the Eagles, but I don't know, man. Ever since Jackson Dart has came to be the starting quarterback, that Giants offense has just been reignited. And I know that losing Scatterbo, that's just a tough loss for them. But I still think that regardless, the Giants are going to play hard and they're just not going to go away very easily. So the Niners should still get the dub next week, even though the Giants are a tough out. And considering the way Saquon Barkley ran roughshod all over him, Christian McCaffrey, this should be a bounce back game for him, especially since Saquon Barkley hadn't rushed for 100 yards, but against the Giants he did, and that defense has just given up big plays, really. So I think Christian McCaffrey should be able to run for quite a bit of yards and get some open holes and just maybe take it to the house and maybe get a 50-yarder, who knows. I don't know if the Giants' defense is going to tighten up or not. You'd think they would tighten up after that Denver debacle where they gave up an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter, but against Philadelphia, I don't know. I guess it was just too much to overcome. And San Francisco, doesn't nearly have the talent that Philadelphia has, but they still have a lot of talent on offense despite their injuries. San Francisco, even though they have the easiest schedule, they have some hard games, coming up. They got Los Angeles, they got Arizona, they got Indy and Seattle later in the year, and those are just hard teams to beat. All the other teams on their schedule they should be favored to beat, but that's just not how it works in the NFL. You're going to lose against a bad team, kind of like how the Niners lost against the Giants this time around. And they'll probably win some of these harder games like Los Angeles, Arizona, Indy, Seattle. I don't know. They should probably win a couple of those games. I hope it isn't against Seattle, but this is a tough division race. I get the feeling that 10 wins is just not going to be enough to get into the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe 11 wins isn't going to be enough either, but I don't think that 10 wins is going to cut it. I mean, Seattle won 10 games last year, and that didn't do jack for us. So I get the feeling that 11, 12 wins is probably going to be it. And if San Francisco is able to get 11, 12 wins, I think they should be one of the wild card teams, or I don't know, maybe that's enough to win the division, but I don't think so. I think, I hate to say it, but I think probably the Rams are going to win that division. I think, though, in the end, two teams from the NFC West will be a wild card, and from the NFC North, either Green Bay or Detroit will be the wild card. And yeah, those will be the three wild card teams. NFC South, NFC East. No one is going to make the playoffs from that division other than the division leaders, of course. Like I talked about, Washington, Dallas, they don't have anything going. Um, NFC South, New Orleans stinks. Atlanta's mid, and Carolina's also mid. So that should be an easy division for Tampa Bay to win. And even with all their injuries, they've still been able to cook. And yeah, yeah, but San Francisco, they just can't afford to lose, many more games, three at max. And if they lose any more than that, then they may be screwed, especially with the Seattle and the Rams coming up on their heels. Now I want to talk about the whole NBA gambling thing. It happened last week. Didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I thought today would be a good day to talk about it. We all know that Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and Damon Jones were arrested by the FBI on charges of illegal gambling. I'm going to focus on Chauncey and Terry because they're actually part of the NBA, and Damon Jones hasn't really been part of the NBA for a while, honestly. Terry was actually cleared of any wrongdoing by the NBA of like tipping off friends in like March of 2023 about faking an injury and telling his friends that he's gonna go out earlier in the game so they can bet the under. Evidently, the FBI had more information related to his gambling, so I don't know. I guess probably the NBA must have dropped the ball. Chauncey Billups, apparently he had a whole gambling ring going on related to the mafia with pre-marked cards and just basically looting money from people. Now, I don't know, his defense is probably going to be that like, he was just paid to appear there and he had no idea what the hell was going on, and he isn't charged of doing this, but like in the FBI report or whatever, it talked about how he informed bettors about certain lineups he would use in games. So that's not good. With Chauncey, I'm kind of surprised if these allegations are true. They probably are because when the FBI comes for you, they probably have a lot of evidence on their hands because Chauncey Billups had such a good reputation in the NBA. As a player, he was a leader and a coach. He's a Hall of Famer. I thought he should have gotten into the Hall of Fame earlier. He got inducted last year, but I thought it should have happened way sooner than that. But nonetheless, it's just not good for a guy who was considered a consummate professional. And I know that things weren't going well in Portland, and it's been rocky during his tenure day, but it just felt like, he really cared about the guys, and players have talked about how he's really cared about them, and like he was trying to build a good culture in Portland and a good identity of a team that just plays hard. But I don't know. Evidently, he led a lot of people astray, so that's just disappointing. And it's just shocking to me that these dudes who make millions of dollars would try and engage in something like gambling when the consequences are so dire. But I guess maybe there's a rush of gambling that you just don't get in playing in the NBA or maybe coaching in an NBA game. Obviously, if a semblance of this is true whatsoever, then Terry and Chauncey, they will be banned by the NBA just like Jonte Porter was. And I guess with all this gambling stuff coming about and all these leagues partnering with like gambling companies and all these top sports media podcast networks, like, being sponsored by FanDuel and whatnot, this was bound to happen. Now, I'm not going to act like, some moral guy and say gambling is this horrible, horrible thing, and, it shouldn't happen. Obviously, if you do too much of it, that's obviously not a good look. And if you have an addiction, that's pretty bad. I tried a little bit of gambling in 2023. I sucked at it, so I just stopped. Maybe if I was good at it, I would try more of it, but I just don't really want to get into it, honestly. And yeah, I have the feeling that this isn't the last of what we're going to see, and I'm sure like more things are going to come out about certain players and maybe some coaches. Pablo Torre, I think he said he's going to do some more investigating about this, and I'm sure that he's going to open Pandora's box to see whether more people in the NBA were involved in something like this. This is something that the NBA is going to need to be cognizant of. Gambling is not good, to say the least. It just ruins the integrity of the game. When fans watch sports, they get the feeling that the athletes and coaches are doing everything in their power to win, and if anything like impedes that, it's just going to turn people off. And there's already a segment of people who think that the game is rigged. So this doesn't help that case whatsoever. I've always thought like the rigged things are overrated, but I don't know. It's certainly like, happened in the NBA where like, I can't deny the facts. It happened in that Sacramento series. I don't know if that was related to gambling or whatever, but it certainly felt like the refs were trying to give the Lakers an edge with the free throws. And we all know about Tim Donaghy and like, his things with like gambling and whatnot, and how he got sentenced to like 15 months in prison. So yeah, the NBA has just not, you know, gotten away from this whole gambling thing. And of course, in the NBA, there is tanking. So that is like one thing where like you can say, oh, like teams are not trying hard to win. But like, even if you put out like, bad players and you're intentionally trying to get a better draft pick, the players on the floor are genuinely like trying to win. They're just not that good. And with tanking, the theory is that you try and tank for like 1 year or whatever. But once you build up a good team, you're gonna try hard to win games. But if you're just taking money, I don't know, you just get the feeling that you're gonna tank your team's chances of winning, whether they're good or not. I mean, Chauncey's team wasn't good, but I don't know. Terry Rozier, he's been on some pretty good teams, so you really can't trust him, evidently. Um, Now, you shouldn't be the Philadelphia 76ers where you try and blatantly tank like they did in the mid 2010s. That was just horrible and awful, and I'm glad that things didn't work out for them in terms of having postseason success. But yeah, the NBA, they're just going to have to be cautious about this, and they're just going to have to be ruthless about this. And I'm not saying that the NBA is hiding things, but it is a little bit weird that Terry Rozier was cleared of any wrongdoing, and the FBI clearly has found out more information about him. I don't think the NBA can afford to drop the ball about any more things, whether it's Jonte Porter or Terry Rozier. I think if more and more stuff comes out about these players and gambling, I mean, yeah, it won't be a good look for the league, and there will be a segment of fans who are like the game is rigged and whatnot. But you have to get rid of those players and coaches as soon as possible. That's all I have about gambling. I want to shift a little bit to college football and talk about Brian Kelly. He got fired by LSU and apparently is owed $54 million. He signed a 10-year, $95 million deal in 2021. And honestly, that was pretty shocking at the time because at Notre Dame, he wasn't exactly like killing it every year. I mean, they only made the playoffs 3 times during his tenure there. And for a premier program that is Notre Dame, that isn't exactly good. I mean, I don't understand why these colleges feel the need to sign these coaches to long term deals like 10 years. I understand that it takes time to build a program and whatnot, and you want a head coach to stick around for a decade. That's what is probably ideal, but I just don't think it's worth the risk because in a case like Brian Kelly, if he's not very good, which he wasn't, you owe him a lot of money. And that was just a swing and a miss. And we've seen this happen to other college programs, whether it's a Mel Tucker, like, he was like doing a pretty good job at Michigan State and he flamed out pretty quickly. And obviously, there were other reasons for that, off the field issues and whatnot. Jimbo Fisher, he signed like a big 10-year deal at Texas A&M, and that was bad. And they had to get rid of him, and they had to pay him like 75, 77 million dollars, something like that. And thank God they got rid of him because Texas A&M is killing it. Kurt Signetti, he just signed a big deal. I hope it works out for him. I mean, he seems like a good coach. Indiana is winning games. They're going to make the playoffs. So I hope it works out, but I still don't like Indiana signing him to a long-term deal. I guess maybe they did that so that he doesn't go to like a Penn State or anywhere else, but I don't know. I still don't like it, and I just don't think it's worth it, especially when these dudes are unproven, like a Brian Kelly or, I guess maybe a Jimbo Fisher, even though I think he did win a national championship. And for Brian Kelly, this was like really pathetic. The expectations were sky high because most of the other past LSU coaches, whether it's Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, they won national championships, and that was what he was there to do, was to win national championships. But it just didn't seem like he was really ready to put in the work. Didn't hire good staffs. Didn't build relationships with players. Quite a few of the players said that they never had a relationship with the guy. And there was someone on Twitter who said that when he was a starter, he would talk to Brian Kelly all the time. But once he got benched, Brian Kelly never really looked his way. And then there was the whole thing with Greg Brooks, which was one of his former players with the brain cancer. And his father said that Brian Kelly didn't really reach out to him whatsoever. Kelly refuted that. I don't know what's true or not, but nonetheless, still not a good look. And then the whole Southern twang thing was a little bit real. He just seemed like a real misfit at LSU. And in the South, you have to be authentic no matter who you are. I mean, Nick Saban, he was in the South. I don't think he grew up in the South, but he was real and authentic, and that's why people gravitated towards him. And everything with Brian Kelly, it just seemed so fake. And not having relationships with your players in college football is just horrible, because college football, it's just all about building relationships with your players more than it is in the NFL, because these guys, they look up to you. They're looking to get molded into men, and they look at coaches as an authority figure, and you have to care about your players, and it can't be transactional. I mean, Nick Saban talked about how it was transactional for him at first when he was coaching college football, but then he realized that he needed to build relationships with his players, and he did that, and a lot of his guys love him. So for Brian Kelly not to get that, especially like in the South when things like those matter, it's disappointing that he didn't get that. But good riddance to Brian Kelly. I'm sure lots of LSU fans are glad that he's gone, and hopefully the next coach they get understands the job, understands the mission, understands the high stakes. I mean, sure, it's a lucrative job, but it's definitely not an easy job because high expectations come with it. And hopefully the next coach gets that and, is able to acclimate himself to that environment in a better way than Brian Kelly ever did. Now I want to give some of my takes on the NBA. I only have one thing to talk about, really. I want to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. VJ Edgecombe, I'm just shocked at how well he's playing so far. He dropped 34 points in his debut game. In the modern NBA, I can't think of any other rookie who's played as well in a game than VJ Edgecombe has, especially when he did it against the Boston Celtics, albeit without Jason Tatum. But still, the Celtics have had a lot of success in the past 6-7 years with the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And he just looks like a really mature guy, and he's very aggressive, and he just knows how to play the game. And I'm kind of shocked at how fast he's acclimated himself to the NBA game. I mean, as of now, him and Maxey as a backcourt are averaging a combined nearly 60 points a game. I'm sure that's probably not going to last. I'm sure it's probably going to be like, in the 40s, maybe low 50s, but I'd probably say it's probably going to be in the high 40s. But that's just impressive to do, man. Have I can't remember any other rookie playing as well. Usually for rookies, there's a learning curve, and I'm sure that VJ Edgecombe is going to have a learning curve to a degree, and he's going to have some games where he struggles, but especially when teams get more film out on him. But I still think that he's going to be really, really good. Right now, the Sixers are managing Embiid's minutes, which makes sense considering all of the injuries he has. But I wonder how all this is going to change once Paul George comes back, because this kid is developing, he's taking off, and I'm not sure you want to take the ball out of his hands and give Paul George those touches. But the other thing is that they're paying Paul George like more than $50 million this year, and it's going to look bad if he's just relegated to a spot up shooter. And I'm sure the Philadelphia fans are not going to really like that. But I don't think that money should dictate how your offense is run. And I think considering the fact that you have a young dude who seems really aggressive, I think you should go more in the Maxi, Edgecombe, and of course the Embiid direction, because I don't know, Embiid is just a unique, different player. So you just have to go through him when it comes to the offense. And even though he is injury prone, he's a talented player. And Paul George, just like with Maxi, Edgecombe, and Paul George, it just all overlaps in terms of their skill sets. And unfortunately, Paul George is going to be the one that has to kind of take the backseat to those guys. And I think that honestly makes sense. So I think the Sixers are just going to have to bite the bullet, and they're just going to have to ride with Edgecombe, Maxi, and Joel Embiid. And I'm sure Philadelphia fans won't enjoy it, but it is what it is. I gotta say, the smartest thing the Clippers did in the Kawhi era was not signing Paul George to a max deal. That was brilliant. I think they probably realized he was getting older and up there in age, and it just wasn't smart to like pay him all that money, especially when they kind of made another mistake in just signing Kawhi to all that money, and they probably didn't want to double down on their mistakes. And plus, they had James Harden, so they could afford to just let Paul George walk away. So I respect them for that. Yeah, Philadelphia 76ers are 4-0. They had a crazy overtime win in Washington last night. I'm really excited to see how they progress. I don't know. Maxi, he's a true star. Like he's really good. He's solidified. Embiid, if he's healthy, which I highly doubt is going to happen, if he can stay healthy, the Sixers, they have a shot. But unfortunately, I just don't trust Joel Embiid's health. But regardless of whether or not Joel Embiid is healthy or not, they have a pretty bright future with the backcourt they have in Edgecombe and Maxey, and those guys can continue to round out their games. The Philadelphia 76ers are going to be a problem in the future. So I'm excited to see how this season looks going forward and how it's all going to shake out in the Eastern Conference. And yeah, that's about all I have for you guys. I will be back Friday to preview some games on Sunday, talk about Thursday night football, and of course, more NBA stuff if anything else catches my eye or if anything else goes on this week. Yeah, thank you. Enjoy your Wednesday. Please like and subscribe.